Welcome to Ritual and Myth. While analyzing a broad range of rituals in different types of societies, Turner focuses especially on rites of passage, rituals that mark change in status in a person's life. Such events possess a characteristic called liminality, the state of being between two cultures or statuses. Turner provides a definition of ritual as a stereotypical sequence of activities involving gestures, words, and objects, performed in a sequestered place and designed to influence preternatural entities or forces on behalf of the actor's goals and interests. Turner described what he calls the different dimensions of a ritual. These dimensions represent the different perspectives involved in the study of rituals. For example, the myth is different for the practitioner and ethnographer. Exegetic is insider, operational is an outsider, and positional is an outsider explaining. Separating myth from the perspective of the community is risky business, especially if there's ritual involved. Why? In those instances where ritual is still practiced, especially, ritual and myth are sort of tied in this mystical union. If you're raised to look at it exegetically, which is usually the case, you run the risk of not fully relating the ideas, motifs, and other elements of the indoctrination process. If you're an operational thinker, you run the risk of trying to evaluate it scientifically or in an otherwise quantifiable way. Liminality is an in-between phase. Turner brings this up and describes it as part of an initiation sequence. During this time, we are distanced from our rituals, sometimes cloistered and expected to read sacred texts, although Turner also expresses the importance of play during many of these periods. Liminality allows for both the initiant and those with whom he or she interacts to be free of restraints in preparation for a new order to be accepted upon initiation. Persephone is abducted by Aidoneus into the underworld. In her grief, Demeter takes a job as a nursemaid while she searches for her daughter. When she is caught performing a ritual in fire on the child, she is cast out. Thereupon, she causes winter, using humans as a bargaining chip. It is settled that, because she consumed a pomegranate seed, she will reside in the underworld for 1/3 of the year. The hymn to Demeter represents the Eleusinian point of view, considering agricultural life and rural values superior to urban civilization. Many mythological systems represent humans as having a body and a soul, but for some these two aspects of human beings are closer in nature than for others. It should be noted that the fate of the dead in Hades is not, for the most part, punishment, but a kind of shadow life. They do not suffer. They are, quote-unquote, exhausted. The myth of Demeter represents a change in perspective of Greek myth, from dualism to a mystery-based Gnosticism, eventually inviting the more existential Docetism. The story itself is a very direct explanation for the seasons. Again, given the focus of the community on farming, it would be no wonder she would arise as a deity of import. That said, Persephone is another interesting character while we're in the throes of discourse about Victor Turner and the liminal. She observes the defined times for her respective spaces, once she has been rescued by Demeter. Again, it's interesting to note that even Demeter can't overwhelm the need for that period of dormancy. It's almost like the very naturalness of the scientific occurrence mitigates the extreme and emotional behaviors in the story that result in those very natural occurrences. When we look at marriage customs, then, the idea that her betrothed collects her isn't so far-fetched. The manner in which it was done is what inspires a more agitated reaction from Demeter. Even still, their worship and the rituals surrounding the story impacts our understanding of the complexities of interaction on a number of levels, as we have just discussed. Syncretism is the process of borrowing or blending traditions that occurs when different religions have contact with one another. In some instances, her breath revives him, where in others, it's her tears. Isis, like Demeter, was the object of cult worship. That said, just as with Demeter, we know little about this practice in the modern. This week, we talked about some rather intense love myths. Given what you've read about Victor Turner, Demeter and Persephone, and Isis and Osiris, how do you view Cupid and Psyche? What do you think about the ways that love was portrayed in your readings?